Even though Colt's manufacturing was the prime contractor for the U.S. model of 1911A1 pistol, it was not the largest maker. More guns were actually produced by Remington Rand, the typewriter manufacturer, during World War II.
The full national mobilization of the Second World War placed strains on the American nation, not just on its military, but also on American industry. And for the most part, American industry rose to the call during the war and achieved production miracles that, to this day, continue to mesmerize us. Nowhere is this more true than in the production of the M1911A1 pistol during the conflict. Now, we all know the story of the 1911 pistol, how it's adopted before World War I. It fights through the First World War. It undergoes changes that lead to the M1911A1 design, which was standardized in 1926. But then the exigencies of the war effort following Pearl Harbor are such that we need very large numbers of pistols, and we need them quickly. And the result of that then is that 5 manufacturing interests produced the M1911A1 pistol under contract to the United States government during the war years from 41 to 45. Among those are Colt, Union Switch and Signal, Singer Sewing Machine, Ithaca Gun Company, and then Remington Rand. Remington Rand produces over 900,000 M1911A1 pistols during the Second World War, more than twice as many as the second in that line.
Is this the Remington of Remington, Ilion, New York, that we're all so fond and familiar with, that dates back to 1816? Is that just a Remington, pistol like we would buy today from Arkansas or out there at Huntsville, Alabama, or Ilion, New York plants? No. Well, kind of no. It is sort of. Well, maybe not. Anyway, 1875, E. Remington and Sons in Ilion, New York, they pretty much invent the first standard typewriter. That first typewriter was an attempt to diversify the manufacturing of one of the powerhouse industries in North America, which was the industry of firearms manufacture. Typewriters, though, didn't really take off for Remington and Sons, and they actually sold their typewriter patents to a couple of foremen that worked at the factory that decided they had had enough of guns for a while. This typewriter thing sounded pretty cool, and so they went off with the Remington typewriter business and opened up their own business, the Rand Corporation, selling and manufacturing typewriters. And from 1878 or so, I think it was, they were one of the world's largest manufacturers of typewriters. But much like Smith Corona was a manufacturer of famous typewriters in World War II era as well, Remington Rand, now a completely separate entity, was turned to manufacture handguns. Yeah, I've used many times in talking about the 1911, the 1911A1, and the analogy about the, how it was state of the art for the entire age of flight and the space age. Came and went, and this gun was still state of the art with very few changes. Well, there were a few modifications, a few upgrades, and they came about in the 1920s, and at one point the 1911 became the 1911A1. As far as the main modifications that were made to the gun. Visually, to inspect them, you lay them side by side. You have to know what you're looking for to tell the difference. There's the kind of the scooped out area around the right and left side frame behind the trigger. That's sharper and at a flat edge on a 1911. But on 1911A1, you can see that that little metal's been relieved back there to give relief to the finger for right or left-handed shooters. And the other thing is the arched mainspring housing. The whole safety of the gun is kind of reconfigured in the back, and that arched mainspring housing on the lower half of the back strap of the gun changes the profile of the gun, makes it easy to identify as a 1911A1.
At the outset of World War II, the Remington Rand Corporation of Syracuse, New York, undertook a federal contract to produce the Model 1911A1 automatic pistol for the U.S. government. The first of these was a contract in as early as March of 1942 for 125,000 pistols. Unfortunately, Remington Rand had never made pistols, and they had no equipment with which to do so. So they started acquiring parts from Colt, Springfield, United Switch and Signal, other companies to start assembling these pistols. By March 1943, it became apparent that there were problems, and they had problems with the interchangeability of the pistols. So they dropped back, worked on the problem, and then in May of 1943, production really moved forward.
Consistency is the hallmark of quality, and they were very consistent. They had set up their factory for straight line production technique. They wanted to handle the material as little as possible. And it progressed from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, all the way through to finished guns. And they did a marvelous job at that.
Given the vast numbers that's out there, there's certain characteristics to all 5 manufacturers that you'll want to learn about. Charles Clausen's books are the best source for that information. But be careful with your Remington Rands. There's a lot of duplication in the serial number blocks. And so you'll find a number of Colts or maybe Ithacas that have the same numbers. And somebody that's a little unscrupulous might be using a Remington frame on but numbering it to an Ithaca slide or something like that. You want to keep your eyes open when dealing with 1911A1 manufacturers. Read first, buy later.